Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. We are launching a new craft beer city this month, and we are kicking it off with a bang. We're going to be tasting 2 beers from Fusion Brewing. We're going to be trying their Stange Days Kolsch and Quasar IPA. We also spoke with Chris Paumi, the founder and head brewer over there, and this guy was so much fun and so interesting to talk to. He really loved malt. I get super passionate talking about malt, so we had a great time. Stay tuned to find out what city we are exploring. Hey everyone, welcome to the Brews Less Traveled Beer Club. I'm your craft beer loving host, Molly Lamb. We are discovering a new craft beer city that you might not know about. This month, we are in Lexington, Kentucky. The secret is revealed. And I also have a fantastic new co-host this month because my co-host changes every single month. And this is someone who I am honored to say is a personal friend of mine since we both have lived in Brooklyn. We actually became buddies before I moved. He also hosts his own beer podcast called The Beer Vengers that I was actually a guest on, and it was super fun. He is also a fellow co-worker with me here at Bruvana. So get ready to have a total pro this month. I am delighted to introduce my August co-host, Ethan. Ethan, how are you? You want to say hello?
Hi, Molly. It's so good to see you. Oh my gosh.
You're so close yet so far away.
I know it's the joys of the internet. And I am so excited to get to meet all of you. I have been listening and watching along for the last couple of months. So when I was told I was going to get the chance to hop in as Molly's co-host for a little bit and explore a city with her, I was pumped. I am a professional tour guide, professional talker. I've worked with City Brew Tours in their New York City location for about 3 years, which is precisely how long they have been in the New York City location. So I'm OG on that one. But I have been a beer drinker. So I've been a tour guide for about 17 years and a beer drinker longer than I've been legally allowed to be one, as all good beer drinkers are. And I am super excited because I have had the biggest travel itch with all of our indoor times. So getting to travel with you virtually and try some beers is one of my favorite things. So I cannot wait to get to know everyone and to see what we got lined up for us this month. We've got 2 beers that we're going to be enjoying tonight. But as I was unboxing my little treat this week, I wanted to draw attention to this awesome Lexington brewery map with our live stream guest schedule on the back here. Molly, this is such a cool thing. I always love getting a sense of like where in the world all of my beers come from. And I was just blown away by this little thing. So I'm excited to get to travel along with them and kind of figure out where all this stuff is.
No, totally. There's so many great breweries in Lexington. We picked some of the ones that we think are at the top of the top. But I know, the cool thing about this map is it lets you know all of the breweries in the city we're discovering. So even the ones that we're not featuring throughout the month, if you go visit the city, you have the pick of the draw, really. Yeah, Lexington is really, really amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say just that the downtown corridor where all this is located, I bet there's some delightful crawls or stumbles to be had there. So throw that on the list.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, beer is really kind of just popping up as something that is not to be overshadowed by the bourbon in Lexington,
yes.
So I feel like you're getting some really good beers there now too. And it's not just all about bourbon there. So I think that's really cool in a city that's known for kind of another beverage. Exactly. Beer is really making its way through that city.
Yeah, well, tonight we have got a great guest who I cannot wait to chat with. His name is Chris Paumi. He is the CEO and founder and head brewer of Fusion Brewing in Lexington, number 14 on your map if you're playing along at home. And we are drinking 2 beers, the Stange Days Kolsch and the Quasar IPA from Fusion today. And Molly, it's like you picked these two of my favorite styles for our first day together. I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
Love a Kolsch, love an IPA. I mean, an IPA is like kind of good all year round. And Ethan, I want to know, how is everything in Brooklyn? I just moved from Brooklyn. I actually have a Brooklyn glass I'm going to be drinking. I think I'm going to drink the IPA out of this one.
Oh,
and
perfect.
it's weird. I lived in Brooklyn for 12 years and I'm gone now. And it's like, I just became friends with you. Yeah. And then now it's like, I'm pulled away, but I literally was like, I have to have Ethan as my co-host for this month.
Oh gosh, well, I'm thrilled to get to hang out with you, and even the short amount of time that we had. And I did want to say, some of our Beer Avenger friends, as Molly mentioned, she joined our merry band just before she left. So the captain and Hophead Huck do send their regards, of course. But I'm, Brooklyn is we miss you. We feel a little bit of a hole with your absence. But I spent actually most of a big chunk of my week outside of Brooklyn. I went on a little adventure in upstate New York and parts of Pennsylvania, just to kind of give myself a little bit, scratch a little bit of that travel itch. And I wanted to do a shout out to Fegley's Bethlehem Brew Works, where I had a delightful, speaking of summer beers, beautiful beer outside on the street. They have a lovely little outdoor setting, and it was a beautiful warm day, and I got to drink down a beer. So good to keep all these summer beers going. So Molly, I know, you're further away. Where in the world are you?
You know what? Honestly, it's hard to even answer that. So right now I am currently in Athens, Georgia, which is also kind of a cool little mini craft beer city too. So shout out to all the breweries here. I am waiting for my stuff to arrive in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which those of you that have been tuning in, you have heard me talk about this. I'm kind of an open book. I talk about my life and what's going on. My stuff will arrive in Chattanooga. I'm hoping by Saturday. I'm super pumped that we are discovering Lexington this month because this is bringing out the Southern girl in me. We had two amazing cities before this. We had Pittsburgh, we had Cincinnati, which are super fun, kind of like Rust Belt Midwestern cities. Loved exploring them, but I am super excited to get back to my roots as a Southern girl. I'm born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, and Kentucky is not that far away. So I am really excited about that for sure. I've always kind of loved Kentucky. It is one of the most underrated, beautiful states, just as a whole. Like in this country, we hear a lot about California, Napa Valley. Kentucky has amazing music. I used to work in the music industry. I lived in Nashville a long time ago. I worked at a booking agency, and so many artists, I love country music. So many of them, Ethan, come from Kentucky. I mean, if you're any country music lovers that are tuning in right now, please let me know. John Prine, he's from Kentucky. Chris Stapleton. I mean, there's so many amazing country singers from Kentucky. So it just kind of like has a place in my heart as a place that a lot of the music I loved growing up has really come from.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like such a beautiful and very cool town. And given what I have seen, at least what we got coming up, it sounds like they have got some spectacular beer that we've just been buzzing over it. We haven't been paying enough attention. Just thinking about the bourbon, not the beer.
I agree. Do you want to go ahead and crack open a beer? I'm kind of itching to try the Stange Days Kolsch.
Yes. Oh my goodness. The Stange Days Kolsch, German style Kolsch ale, which is always a nice kind of tricky one when we're talking about a Kolsch. But let's check this one out, shall we?
Let's crack it open.
All right. Oh, delightful.
That sound.
I know, a good fresh beer. Let's give this a nice pour.
I'm going to use my beautiful Brewphonic glass that came in the beer box.
Lovely.
For all of our beer club members, because all of our beer club members always get a customized glass.
Look at that. See, I love it's got a nice intense head. It's that fluffy white color on the head, big bubbles, lots of intense carbonation. But then it's just this beautiful straw color. Look at how beautiful that is.
And I noticed right away the appearance of this beer. It's actually, I don't know if it's the lighting in my apartment. I feel like this beer is actually a little darker than most Kolsch's a little bit. It is gorgeous. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Oh my goodness.
Wow. This is really good. It's actually got a little bit of a fuller body almost. I'm noticing it's got a little more meat to it than most Kolsch's. It's delicious. Yeah,
I know. And that Pilsner malt there is really nice and intense, but it's still got that effervescence to it. And you get a little bit of the hit of the like traditional noble hop that you want from like a Kolsch style beer.
Let's take a beer break. So Ethan just mentioned noble hops. What exactly are noble hops? Well, according to noblehops.com, it is a term that refers to the traditional varieties of hops that were used to make early European beers. In the Middle Ages, water wasn't usually safe to drink, so people drank beer instead. This medieval beer was low in alcohol, but high in bitterness. That bitter tang came from the noble hops that were used to brew the beer. Early brewers began using hops to flavor their beers, and the ingredients stuck over time. Similar to wine grapes, the hop flavors are influenced by the terroir, or the climate and environment conditions that affect hops as they grow. A specific crop of hops used in greater or lesser quantities can drastically change a beer's flavors. And there's 4 types of noble hops: Hallertau, Saaz, Spalt, and Tettnang. Now, let's get back to the episode and hear a little bit more from Ethan and see what he thinks about this delicious beer brewed with all these awesome noble hops.
This is everything I want sitting on my roof, on a hot day to kind of cool me down and, take the edge off of a long day. It's just kind of perfect.
100%. And so, as we mentioned, this is pronounced Stange. It looks like it's pronounced Stange. So it's a little bit confusing when you're reading it, trying to be phonetic.
Well, and Molly, I love these glasses so much because it is basically beer shots. Because the idea with these glasses is that your barmaid goes around with them on a little crown, and then you pick them up, and they're small and they're thin. And the idea is that you just have to shoot it back quickly before the beer gets too hot. And then at the end of the day, you kind of stack up the number of glasses, and then you take those over to the bar and you pay based on the number that showed up. Which honestly, can we just serve all beer like that? Because I'm super down.
I'm totally down.
Right?
I actually did not know that, Ethan. Yeah. And I love a Kolsch because it is a cold fermented beer that uses ale yeast. So it's a hybrid ale. So it brings out the unique flavors. And I really love that about a Kolsch because there's not a lot of hybrid ales. Ale yeast is going to be warm fermented, but it's ale yeast and it's cold fermented. So it's sort of a combo of an ale and a lager. And I think that is so cool. And that's one reason a Kolsch is my go-to style.
Absolutely. Definitely.
So the Stange Days is a true German Kolsch brewed exclusively with rich German Pilsner malt and traditional German noble hops. This beer is really crisp and light, very refreshing, a great addition to our lineup today that has incredible drinkability. It's a true kind of patio beer, I would say.
Yeah, I will say, and we've got one coming up a little bit later this month, but during the summer, you get I love a good sort of Goza style beer, something that's a little salty and a little bit sour, gives you that pucker in the summer. For me, that is a fantastic summer drinking beer kind of situation. And I know Kolsch is one of your go-tos, Molly. Do you have a patio or summer beer that you just absolutely love?
I've been drinking a lot of Kolsch's. I've been drinking a lot of Pilsners. I'm normally kind of IPA stouts all year round. I've been trying to branch out a little bit, but I have been drinking a lot of Kolsch's and a lot of Pilsners. I will say my new apartment has a patio. So, no one to brag because, New Yorkers, we don't always get patios.
Nope.
It's your fire escape. You're this is my terrace. So I am getting ready to move into somewhere that does have a patio. And I do love a Kolsch for that. Anything kind of a little crisper with that sort of sippy effervescence, I feel is a great outside beer. But yeah, this one is really good. I really like that it has and I know I keep saying this, but just a little bit more body to it. I really like that it's a little bit more flavorful than most Kolsch's. So I'm really digging this one.
Oh my goodness. Well, while we're enjoying this beer, I want to share a couple fun facts about Lexington. Because I am, again, got that travel itch. So the big question, of course, is where has the Queen of England vacationed? Naturally, it's Lexington, Kentucky. And it's not really a timeshare situation, but Her Majesty has traditionally been involved in the world of thoroughbred racing. And she houses horses at Lane's End Farm, which, is one of the spots where you do that kind of thing. I'll be honest, if I was just trotting around Lexington having a beer and the Queen showed up, I don't know what I would do. Molly, how would you feel in that situation?
I'd probably high five her because I feel she's that type of person. If she's sort of royalty, but then also can sort of get down and gritty and like be in the South and like horse racing. I mean, I don't know if it's like getting down and gritty, but like horse racing, I feel like, okay, yes, it is like sort of a fancy thing, but I feel like you're kind of cool. You automatically have street cred if you're doing that. You're going to Kentucky, like something about that. I just sort of want to high five her a little bit and be like, you know what? You are really cool.
Yeah, I mean, she's keeping it real for sure. Visiting, taking care of her horses. There is that like down to earth quality. I would just like, I'm glad that you would go in for the high five. I would be so terrified with all the etiquette you're supposed to do around the queen that I would be like, how am I going to screw this up? Like, I would probably go and hide in a bush, drinking a beer.
Screwing it up would probably be high-fiving her. Like I'd probably get, politely escorted out by like men in, uniforms. They're like, right, Molly, calm down. Feeling and hot, high-fiving the queen. But exactly. No, I think that's so cool. And also I loved this fact about Lexington. Every Halloween, 2,000 zombies rise up at the historic Kentucky Theater and dance their way down Main Street. Lexington was the first city to launch a Michael Jackson Thriller reenactment. I think that is like the most fun thing.
I have turned into the man who sits in his apartment building and puts the pumpkin on his door and waits for the kids in all of their costumes to come and get candy. And thankfully, we have an active trick-or-treating setup in my building. So I get lots of kids. We have a bunch of pumpkins and bumblebees and things like that. But to try and endear myself to the parents, I also have a supply of beers that if the parents would like to trick-or-treat as well, I will give them a little something to take home with them as well. So should you find yourself in Brooklyn during Halloween times, you know where to find me. Come and get yourself a beer and some candy for your kids.
Oh my God, I love that. And while you guys kick back and relax, let's learn just a little bit more about Fusion Brewing. So Fusion Brewing opened in 2019 and is co-owned by Dr. Christian Paumi, head brewer and fermentation microbiologist. Through his various experiences of life, beer, and food, he brings high-quality craft beer to Lexington community in a new, innovative, and exciting way. They bring not only a wealth of beer knowledge, but a deep appreciation for bringing complex flavors from simple traditional beers. They're also located in a super cool area. It's called the Distillery District. I loved visiting that when I was there. It was such a fun area. I could totally tell that was where I would be hanging out if I lived in Lexington. And guys, without further ado, I would really love to welcome on our guest this evening, Chris Paumi, CEO, founder, and head brewer at Fusion Brewing. So we always love to hear about everyone's craft beer origin story. Can you tell us yours, Chris?
I have a long story. I'll try to make it short. So originally I'm from New England. I'm born and raised in Connecticut. I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, right by the water. And then I went to school in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Then I went there and I got my graduate degree. I got my BS degree in chemistry and biochemistry. I then went to Wake Forest University where I got my doctorate in biochemistry and molecular biology with a subspecialty in cancer cell biology and toxicology. Then went to Johns Hopkins, did some postgraduate work there in a yeast lab working on cell biology. Was there for a while, had some kids with my wife, got married when I was actually at graduate school. And then I really needed a job, and I got a job at University of Kentucky, and that's how I ended up here in Lexington. I was brought in as a graduate professor teaching biochemistry and toxicology, and I was running a research lab working on leukemia and lymphoma. I did that for 7-8 years. Moved on from there, got a job at Eastern Kentucky University, and that's when I actually got formally into fermentation and fermentation science, and I was teaching fermentation, microbiology, and biochemistry to pre-meds. And then the budgets got cut, and things happened, and I had a pleasure of going to New Zealand, and then I was on a podcast about my fermentation background, and lo and behold, I found some investors and decided to quit and open up the brewery.
That's awesome. Oh my God. Well, I'm so happy you did. And on that note, I want to open up this second beer with you,
Yes, please.
if that is okay.
Yeah.
We have the Quasar India Pale Ale clocking in at 7.1% ABV.
I'll have to go in my mini fridge right next to my computer.
Yeah. Do it. We're going to crack this open.
Oh my goodness. I am very excited about this beer. Just looking at the description of it, I was so excited that this was going to be on show number one.
So
and I'm gonna want to hear the full backstory on this one.
But I like it because my favorite color, as my kids will tell you, is orange. I love orange.
Perfect.
I love orange. Ethan, you've been to my apartment.
Yeah.
I have orange. My favorite vibe in life is like 1970s, like Texas sunset. Okay. I don't even know what that means, but it's a thing. And I love orange because it's a warm earth tone. Oh my God,
Well,
Chris.
and
I love
we
that
are-
you love orange.
We are three of a kind because when I was younger, when I was a child, I tried to convince my parents to paint my bedroom orange because I love the color so much. So clearly this one is meant to be. And look at how beautiful that is. Speaking of orange, it's got that nice amber color, beautiful head. Oh, and the aromas are just spectacular. Whoa. It is every bit of fruit.
My head is huge on mine.
Yeah, well, that's
you
perfect.
You can smell the Galaxy and Medusa hops that are being used. It is, oh, wow.
Oh.
It's fruity, but almost creamy, like creamsicle-y.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. Oh, my goodness. I just kind of want to, I'm like, I'm just enjoying the smell. I almost don't need to taste it quite yet.
I really am too. Mm-hmm. I'm getting creamsicle kind of vibe, like something about it. It's almost like a little sweet, citrusy, almost kind of creamy and lush.
Yeah. It's definitely sort of citrus. Is that, I assume, but then when I drink it, I do get a nice bitterness too, as well. That hits really nicely, kind of takes over in this beautiful way. So it's that dichotomy that I love in a really well-made IPA.
Chris, I when I spoke with you months back, because Lexington was supposed to be our beer city, I think like last month, and then like things got delayed. And I chatted with you and I told my boss, Julie, I was like, I got to have him on the podcast. This guy is so interesting. So yeah, absolutely. You've definitely taken an interesting route and you are killing it.
Well, I know what I just wanted to know from Chris is like, tell us about this. Like,
so it's actually got a really cool story. So in 2019, we did the Lexington Beer Week and I brewed a beer called Nebula. And Nebula was just a beer that had a ton of Galaxy in it, just a ton of Galaxy. And it was so popular and it blew off the shelves, I decided to brew something a little different. And I'll be honest with you, I just had like 5 or 10 pounds of Medusa sitting around. I was like, now this would be cool. You get a Galaxy beer, because that's where the name of Nebula came from. And I was like, and we'll add Medusa to it. I mean, what's better than Medusa? She's got these crazy things on her hair. If you look at her, you turn to stone. You know, I mean, this beer is going to be amazing. And so I actually made it. And it basically took all my other IPAs and crushed them right off my tap list almost. I mean, people were just totally crushing this beer. And I'll have to be honest with you, if you read I haven't totally updated on all the websites, but this version actually doesn't have Medusa anymore. I went and got a hop contract on a hop that's the sister hop to it. And the sister hop is it's called Zappa, as in Frank Zappa. And so in my opinion, I think with the Zappa and the Medusa, they do the same thing, if you ask me. What it does is it brings that spiciness at the end of the finish and comes across your tongue. And so it actually brings down the fruitiness of the Galaxy that you initially get hit with. And then you get that. But as you picked up my Kolsch, and you'd pick up in a lot of my beers, I kind of dig the malt. That's like my beer.
Yes.
I'm a malt lover. And so this is brewed more like a traditional IPA of yesteryear, or what else I've been told before by other brewers is like more of a Midwestern IPA style.
Yeah.
The Midwestern breweries tend to use a little more, like, if you're into like knowing what the malts are, like a little more Vienna or a little more biscuit malt, something to give you a little more body. And I like to have that body because to me, my mom lives in California now, and I've gone out there and I've had all the best IPAs out there, and I love them. But the thing is, they're stripped down of body a little bit. That's kind of what you do in the West Coast, and they're good because of it. But I just like something a little different. Yeah. So the Galaxy and the Zapper are added at the beginning, and right at the end of the boil. And you got to remember a brewery. I used to be a home brewer too for a long time. A brewery's whirlpool is a lot longer. So like I have a 20-minute whirlpool, and I don't mind telling you it's a 20-minute whirlpool, and then by the time I get that transfer done, I have 7-barrel tanks, so mine are 220 gallons. Mm-hmm. By the time you move that 220 gallons, it's been another half an hour. Oh
wow.
So those and it's sitting at 205 degrees, 200 degrees, 190 something degrees. It's still giving you that alpha hop. So this is one I never actually brewed at a homebrew scale, although many of my other beers I do brew at home. I have a kegerator in my garage. I have three little kegs in it. In fact, over the weekend, I brewed a German Pilsner because I really needed to have something new.
And I mean, honestly, I love that you are someone who's a little bit more like malt forward in your recipes, because I love malt. I love whenever I'm reading about beers. I listen to a lot of audiobooks about beer and, just generally read about beer a lot. I always find so much interest in malt, and because I love that sweet viscosity that we can get from our beers a little bit. And you kind of get that so often from the malt. And I get that, Chris, from both of these beers. They have this beautiful body, this beautiful mouthfeel. It's a little bit more saturating to your mouth. And it's just so flavorful. I love that.
So I'm actually a big sour brewer too. I love brewing like traditional sours, not just kettle sours. I brew those too. But I brew a Goza and I brew other things like that. But I really like barrel-aged sours, hence all the barrels. I have over 30 barrels, and I'm only a small little brewery. And I do a lot of barrel aging and barrel souring. I got into it a long time ago. I'm a member of Milk the Funk, for anybody who knows that. Long-time member, long-time patron. I always go to all those things. And it's caused me to look into other alternative grains. And one of my grains I'm really big on, and if you go digging around, is spelt. I mean, I don't know if you know about that. Spelt is like an ancient grain, old school. Yeah. And when you brew it, it adds lots of body, lots of flavor. It's hard for the yeast to break down. It almost feels like you're chewing on some sweet hay. It's wonderful.
And so I know, like with barley, there's 2-row and 6-row. Is it the same with spelt, or are there? Because I know it's sort of like the proteins, they're distributed more evenly in 2-row malt. Is it the same with spelt? I'm not really familiar.
Spelt is just, it's got a lot more complex sugars, which are harder to break down.
That is cool. And I know when me and you spoke on the phone, you had a really cool story about brettanomyces yeast from a winemaker. And I know you mentioned you make some sour beers. Can you tell our listeners about this story?
Sure. So the brewery is called Speciation Ales, and the guy who owns it is Mitch. And Mitch is just the bomb. He treats me like gold when I go up there, and I go up there only like once a year. And he brews a lot of barrel-aged stuff. But one of the things he's gotten into in the past year or two, maybe 3 now, is wine brewing. And he does like wild wines. And he took a wine, must, and my understanding of it is he took it up to the Great Lakes, kind of got some natural yeast in there. And then he's done a few where he's actually put yeast in there. And it ended up being like a brettanomyces wine. Which is usually for wine, that's a no-no. Like one thing you don't want is brettanomyces in your wine. And it tasted like a wine, but it was definitely different. But if you're a brettanomyces beer person, which I'm a huge Brett person, I love brettanomyces beers. In fact, I love my saisons the traditional way with a little bit of Brett in them. This wine was just, I drank the thing like it was gone. I took it down to my dad's house where my dad lives in Michigan. The reason why I go up there. And I was like, you got to try this. And my dad's like, I don't know. It doesn't taste so good to me. And I was like, oh, it's wonderful. What are you talking about?
I wonder what it was he didn't like. Maybe just like the kind of funkiness that sort of comes with sours and brettanomyces and the way that yeast kind of like feeds on everything. It kind of gives it a little bit of a funk. I wonder if that's what he didn't like. I mean, it's not for everyone. I get that.
The wine was definitely funky. It was all about, it had that horse leather funk in it and everything. And I've even researched multiple types of brettanomyces. You know, I've gone all over the place to make sure I get some of the best. And I just love them. I love every part of them. You know, I went to Colorado just to go to Crooked Stave, and that guy wrote the first thesis on brettanomyces, and I read the whole thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I was going to say, as a microbiologist, I'm sure Brett is a fascinating subject, not only to produce things with, but also to learn about.
Yeah.
So Molly had mentioned to me when we were chatting, and part of the reason I was so excited to talk to you is that you are a lover of English ales.
Yeah. I love English ales.
So talk to me about that style. What is it about that style that you love? Any tips for finding English ales that you think are exceptional?
I think I'm growing a theme here. I mean, what I really like about them is that they're malty.
Yeah. I was figuring that's where we were going, but
they're super malty, and I really like noble hops, and I really like East Kent Goldings, and East Kent Goldings is a go-to for me, as well as I can't think of the other one off the top of my head. Fuggles. And those two hops are just two of my favorites. And I'll be honest with you, when I first opened up the brewery, I kind of gotten into English ales. And my head server, who started working for me before I even opened, he was like, we should go get some ESBs. We'll get Fullers. That sounds good. I was like, because I've never had a good one. And I tried it, and I was like, what is this? I was like, this is amazing. I was going to brew one. And then ever since then, I try to keep one English ale. They're not super popular with the crowd, but they have something to be offered. I just can't seem to convince enough people that a beer that's 3.8% alcohol is super tasty. And
Americans, we want our butt kicked with our beers.
Yeah,
but wait, Chris, were you saying you've never had a good ESB? Is that what you said?
I never had until then, because I never really, the last ESB I had was like, I'm going to date myself, but it was like in the 90s, back in like 93 or 94. I was in college, and I was like, oh, what is this? This tastes gross.
The thing is, they have to get it right, because ESBs typically use Munich malt, which goes through that extra step of stewing to kind of bring out the sugars to caramelize it. And I feel like it's not always done right. So I do completely hear what you're saying. I've had a lot of ESBs where it's just not really done right. But if you get a good one, it has the most decadent, lovely mouthfeel, and it's not actually that sweet. So I completely hear you on that.
So for me, it's all about the Maris Otter malt. It's a lot of Maris Otter with some caramel malts in it, and it's be light-handed with the caramels, heavy with the Maris Otter. Maris Otter actually carries a ton of flavor. In my opinion, that's just what I like. And I'm not saying there's a right way or a wrong way to brew. That's just the way I brew mine. And I'm
following your footsteps here because you're the malt guy, and I'm loving this because I love learning about malt. This is so cool to me.
And I just brewed an Irish red, which is getting on tap. And I put a little bit of rye in it, and it came out really good. And instead of using Maris Otter, I used Golden Promise. And Golden Promise is very similar. Golden Promise is just fantastic. It's a great malt. It's just and you have to import it. They all are made in England. Otherwise, they just don't carry the same thing. It has something to do with the terroir there.
Yeah, I think red ales are a lovely way to sort of start to introduce people to those more malty beers. But I want to talk about this delicious, fusion we've got here, or this the Quasar. I want to first know a little bit more about the name Fusion, and also if you can give us a little hint about the name Quasar here.
Yeah, so the Quasar really just came from the name I needed a step from nebula.
Okay, God, that makes sense.
So a nebula is this spot in space where it's a dead star, and there's all this debris. And a quasar is basically, it's like a black hole on overdrive, like on steroids. And in space, they blink like these bright flashes that you can see, and that's what a quasar is. And it's coming from like basically a dying black hole or super black hole, I think is what it, if I remember right. I always go back. I mean, every single name of my beers always come from some kind of science thing, and I get into it. And at the time when I'm naming the beer, that's where it's got to go. And because of the Galaxy hops, that's really where the Quasar name comes from.
That's so cool. I love the space theme on that. In fact, I specifically put you in a glass with pie on it because I felt like that would be appropriate to the science element tonight.
I put it in this glass. I don't know if you can see my glass.
Oh no, but it looks like it's almost a little twisty. Tell us.
Oh, I can see it. Yeah,
it's twisty. So this is important for Molly. Molly's going to need to know this because she's going to be in Chattanooga. So you got to drive from Chattanooga and you got to drive up to Knoxville. And in Knoxville, there's a place called Pretentious Beer. The guy is not only a brewer, but he's a glass blower. And he's an amazing glass blower. And he has some history. There's some history there where my wife teaches at Center College. She also has a doctorate in organic chemistry. And Center College used to be known or is known as they used to have one of the top 5 glass blowers in the world there. And this guy, as my understanding is that I'm not sure if I'm totally right. He was trained by this guy, and his idea, the whole purpose of this brewery is to serve great beer in great glasses. And they make all their own glasses. And when you go, you get a beer and you can watch them blow the glasses. And I bought one, and I went down there. My kids swim, and we went swimming at the Tennessee Aquatic Center down there. And then on the way home, I asked them if we could stop. They love glass blowing. They've actually blown with the guy at Center, and we watched them blow beer while Dad had a flight. It was pretty awesome.
So this is in Knoxville.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I have some plans to travel there soon.
So
and the
just be careful. There's 2 Pretentious. There's a Pretentious in Ohio and there's a Pretentious in Knoxville. It's the one in Knoxville you want.
Okay. Yeah. I will not be living too far from Knoxville. I'm such a New Yorker. I haven't had a driver's license in forever, but I have a brother who's a pilot, and I have to go to Knoxville for some fun things that I have to go do there. And my brother's like, I'm going to fly you.
My favorite thing to do is I drove across country last year. I bought my mom's truck. And I drove from California all the way back. And I drove through a whole bunch of cities. We drove through Flagstaff. Amazing beer there. Just an amazing place.
I've heard Flagstaff is pretty cool.
If I could have stayed there, I probably just would have camped out and stayed there. Not to mention they have an unlimited amount of like those electric cars. It's crazy. So my mom lives in Gilroy. We went down to visit my cousin in LA. I also went out to San Diego to visit some friends I live out there. Stopped in Bakersfield, visited a brewery there, 1 or 2 there that make similar beers to mine, which we've competed against each other. So that was cool. I really wanted to try and their beer was good. It was blood orange, a wit beer. I make a regular wit beer. Then I went to Flagstaff. We went to Albuquerque. Went to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh man, you did it
somewhere in Texas. I have family in St. Louis, so I stopped in St. Louis, and I went to another one of my favorite breweries, which is the Side Project Brewing, and I also love Urban Chestnut out there. Those are another 2 great breweries. If you're from St. Louis, those are like the bomb. Love those places.
Yeah, and Bakersfield, there's a great, speaking of country music, Dwight Yoakam and Buck Owens have a great song called Bakersfield. And speaking of cities, Chris, I am curious, what is your ideal day off in Lexington? If you just had the day off, what would it be?
I don't get those very often. Honestly, a lot of times, I like to actually, before I ever owned the brewery and I ever knew I was going to be there, I used to hang out the distillery district a lot. At the other brewery, which you will cover, that's there. I know the brewer. I know the people there. It's nice. I take my kids there. We get some pizza. Do that. Another great thing to do is we also would tend to link that in with either going to see the Lexington Legends play some baseball.
Oh, nice.
Or going over to Keeneland and kind of hanging out at Keeneland. That's the racetrack. All the pre-races, the last-minute qualifiers to get into the Derby happen at Keeneland. Some people think Keeneland, Lexingtonians like to think that Keeneland's even nicer than the Derby over there. But they're both nice. And I really like Keeneland. It's close to my house. It's like 2 miles away. And it's right next to the airport.
I love Keeneland. I went when I visited. And also, before we wrap up, Chris, it is time for our rapid fire questions. We change these up every month. So your job is to not think, just answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Can art, fun or distracting?
Depends on the can art.
Okay. I want to know a beer you love to hate.
I guess Rogue Dead Guy. Just because it's always on the shelves and it always is there. And I'd love to hate it, but I still drink it.
See, there you go. That's the kind of answer I'm looking for.
What will the next beer craze be?
What do I think it will be? I think Pilsners are coming back.
I think you're right. When it's not beer, what are you drinking?
Right now, sake.
Oh, sake. Oh, what a good answer. Okay. Sorry, I need to do a follow-up on this one. Cold or hot?
Cold or hot? Cold.
Okay.
I've got a whole bunch right now. My one right now is Stange Drunken Whale.
My personal favorite question, I will try not to judge you. Stouts all year round or only in the winter?
All year round.
You're my boy. Not only do you drink stouts all year round, but you've taught me a lot about malt. Chris, It has been an absolute pleasure having you. Is there anything you'd like to plug before we wrap up?
Check us out at www.fusion-brewing.com. More along the lines, check us out at Fusion Brewing on Instagram and check out our Facebook feed. That's where we do most of our stuff. I have a marketing person, publish all kinds of videos there and on stuff online. And importantly, if you come to Lexington, make sure you come check us out. We're in the Distillery District, just off of downtown near Rupp Arena where the Cats play basketball. We're just downtown. The Distillery District is great. We have music. We have coffee places. We have breweries. Don't just visit me. Come for the whole adventure. Definitely plan a day. Yeah, and plan to get a lift because you will not be able to walk. I can't tell you how many people can't walk at the end of a weekend and come stumbling into our place or out of our place.
Honestly,
they were like, holy cow, where are we going?
The distillery district that you guys are in was so much fun. If you guys are in Lexington, definitely go check out Fusion. They were a phenomenal place to just hang out, but there are so many other places right there. You don't even have to walk more than 10 feet. There's just all these like fun little places right there. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. Thank you to my wonderful co-host, Ethan. Be sure to tune in next week as we chat with our first ever beer can artist. Ooh. Can art has become such a fun craze. We could not pass up the opportunity to chat with artist and designer Justin Stewart. Plus, we'll be drinking the Volta Hefeweizen from Pivot Brewing Company, whose can he actually did design. And Chris, thank you so much for coming on. You have been an amazing guest. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Cheers. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's always a blast having a beer with you. Don't forget to sign up for the Brews Less Traveled Beer Club, and this way you'll get the beers I've been drinking delivered right to your doorstep, plus exclusive access to our weekly live streams. You can also follow Bruvana on Instagram and me as well at Molly_Brews Less Traveled. I always love hearing from you guys, especially if it's a beer recommendation. So keep the messages coming. Cheers.